part, you just sit and look pretty, because they're going to clip a picture. All right, are you ready? We are on live on Facebook and YouTube, and I am here with Grandma Rose. And we have a really big announcement today that I thought it would be a perfect day to introduce everybody to Grandma Rose. She is the star of the book that I wrote, and I wanted to tell a little bit more of a story about how this happened. I'm an internal medicine physician, and I have taken care of lots of folks with broken brains, and I have been studying how the ketogenic diet is really helpful for patients who have had seizures for a long time and how to heal brain injuries. But as I was studying this, it was very, you can get in a rabbit hole pretty quickly with a ketogenic diet, and I kept running into all this information about cancer patients and how they were using it to stress out the cancer cells. It made the chemotherapy much more effective. And of course, had always been this whisper in my mind, I wonder if this would be helpful for my mom, who had struggled with cancer for about 10 years. And I didn't tell Mom, but had gone keto about a month before this book starts, when she walked into her doctor's office after 10 years of cancer, and she's feeling pretty rotten. Had low energy, had been through chemo a couple times. We could see the lymph nodes had really gotten large again, and she was definitely wilted. Like, her spirit had been dampened, her energy was low, she slept a lot. I think at this point, out of the 52 weeks in the previous year, you'd been on antibiotics like 47 or 48 weeks. It was terrible. And we walked in, and just before the doctor walked into the room, she says something very profound, which was, if he says chemo again, the clothes I want at my funeral are on the top shelf. And almost like scripted out of a movie, Grandma's doctor walks in the room, and indeed our fears were true. Her numbers were worse, and he gave us the pink slip to start the chemotherapy. And that's when we're walking to the place to schedule the chemotherapy, and we're kind of shuffling our feet, and I ask her, Mom, do you trust me? And you kind of say, of course I trust you. And I'm like, no, do you 100% trust me? And she's like, yes, I trust you. And then you said, why? I'm like, all right, give me 6 weeks. And that's where the story starts, is that Grandma Rose had been struggling with cancer for over 10 years. I describe her in the book as Mary Poppins in my life, with abundant energy, and magical things happen when she shows up. But Mary Poppins had long died in the body she had 2 years ago. And these were the little notes that I kept while trying to teach her about the ketogenic diet. And I didn't plan on writing a book at the time. I was just trying to study something that was new to me. And I had kept the notes, and my husband said, that would make a really great book. So it started out organically that I am naturally a teacher in my clinic for 20 years as a physician. I find that's my number one job, is to be a teacher. And so here I was teaching the most important student of my life about something that was I was truly struggling to keep it all straight and stay out of the fluff of what's junk science and what was real science and what was, let's just give it a try. And so 2 years ago is when you started this.
Yes.
And why don't you tell them what happened when we went back in, like, the first 6 weeks? Do you remember that, what we did?
Well, you kind of coached me along the way, and I know that as we went through those first 6 weeks, I started to gain some energy, and I started to feel better, and I know the hope was back.
Yeah, you could do something about your cancer. For the first time in 10 years, it wasn't just wait and see.
Yeah.
There was actually something we could do. Mm-hmm. And we held off on the chemotherapy, and at that point your cancer was doubling every 6 weeks, and you had already really high numbers with really big lymph nodes. And do you remember me sharing and teaching how 20 carbohydrates a day was like no fruit?
How do I keep track of all this? And
yeah, and
how do you know all this? And, yes.
And then keeping up with convincing Grandpa that you can't have any carbs around because it was too tempting. And so we went and we cleaned out all the cupboards.
Right. How do you cook for somebody that's growing up on a farm? All he wants is just a little bit of everything and lots of all of everything.
Yeah, and the carbohydrates were everywhere. In every
Everywhere.
dish you'd ever made, all the canned goods that you had like enough to feed the whole county full of stored goods, we just got rid of all of it.
Right.
And then at 6 weeks we went in and we were really hoping that it hadn't doubled. It hadn't doubled again. We had made an impact. But at 6 weeks of a ketogenic diet, what happened? What were the numbers? Do you remember how much lower they were?
They were really down, but I don't remember the exact numbers. No.
Yeah, I remember it was 30% down.
Is that what
So
it was?
I was hoping it hit. Maybe it only went up by 50%.
Right.
Maybe it went up by 70% because it was on target to almost triple based on the rate the cancer was growing. I did not have any place in my mind for the numbers getting better.
Yeah.
So that was our beginning. And now we're 2 years later, and today there is a huge moment in our story, which is that this little book, which is a love letter to my mom, and a whole bunch of little lessons about how I coached her through this high-carb Norwegian diet that we lived on forever, and how do you teach your 71-year-old mother to do ketosis when she's also really not feeling well with cancer for 10 years. And so these notes turned into a love letter, which turned into a book. And the book came out in February, and little by little, we've had a few people that made an impact. You know, one of the things that we've done is tell about the cancer fund that you run in our county.
Well, I'm just on the board, and we have this cancer fund, and it only goes to Aurora County victims or people that get cancer in our county, and it's supported by the entire county with donations, and they sponsor money-making projects and stuff, and as these people send back a thank you to the county fund, because I'm the treasurer, and so I get the thank yous, and it's so rewarding.
So what does the money go towards? How do they use it?
They use it. It's a grant to each one of these people that are diagnosed with cancer in our county, whether they do a treatment or not. If they are diagnosed with cancer, they get it. The only requirement is they have to be an Aurora County resident.
Right.
And
it's an incredible little
It is.
nonprofit that if you have cancer, they just gift you money, and they say, we don't care what you use it for.
Yeah.
You can use it for prescriptions, or you can use it to go to the bar.
money.
Yeah, you go to the bar and get drunk if you want to, but they probably don't do that. But they don't control how you use it. We just know that when you get cancer, the hope is low and the bills are high.
Yes.
And so this little group, and we've given this book away to some of the people in your cancer fund.
Yes. And so the people, that are diagnosed with it and have a little bit of hope can make all the difference in the world.
Right, because you look back at those first 6 weeks when we walked out of that office having such a positive reward. In many ways, we didn't quite care what the labs said that time. You felt better, I felt better.
It was just an inspiration that gave you hope to say, oh, it's worthwhile. So yeah.
Right. The devastation of not having hope when you have cancer, it trickles through so many people.
It does.
And one of the benefits that we've talked about is how when you teach them about what ketosis does and how it puts stress on the cancer cells and how it kind of fuels the brain to repair and the inflammation to lower and on autophagy, which are things I was never planning on spending time teaching my mom, but it was so important to say you can do this.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and so then as we shared the book with people and they've read your story, is there something that over the last 2 years you felt was like the hardest part?
Well, the hardest part is doing it all by yourself. So the best part was that I had the best support in the whole world. I had this teacher that was my own daughter. And so as I went through the learning process and what to do and what not to do, and there's a lot of yeses and nos that go along with this, but it was amazing that God would give you the strength to say, I'm going to try this, and I can stick with it.
Right.
Yeah, so.
When you look at the number of comments that I get are how much hope goes right through the book and then into the people who've never met us.
Yes.
But when you tell a story right and you share what hope we found, it wakes up on the pages of a book that today made it to the bestseller. We got a bestseller sticker on our book, and that's a big announcement for today. Is that we have there was a sticker came in the last week that was number 2, but this way we got a bestseller sticker that is on our book, and never was I planning on this many people being impacted by it. But did you have the other downside? The dog has been running on a Facebook Live, and I'm going to ground my 12-year-old for letting me in. All right, final thing though. So the journey of working together is another major part that I've really found.
You need a support system.
Yeah, that
definitely.
When you try to do this alone, 100 miles from me, but also at the time, do you remember how we didn't tell anyone?
Oh, it was such a secret.
Like
such a secret, and for a time I was in the hospital and very sick, and they would bring me my food tray, and as soon as it came in, Annette would close the door and flush the food or scrape it in the garbage and cover it up with a paper towel.
They're like, I just don't have the strength to explain this to the world.
Right.
We didn't have a good book that people would engage in. And I had these books that I was reading, but they were way too advanced for most of the people to really pick up the story and read about. But in the end, what do you think has been the most inspirational for you?
Being able to stick with it, and the people that are my support, because every day they give me courage to stay. I am so much better than I was a year ago or 2 years ago, and it's not just the weight loss, but it's the energy that you get, and you feel like doing something, and it's not just laying around and saying, oh my gosh, sooner or later this is going to get the best of me.
Right.
But
and,
it's not.
And
it doesn't have to.
The other part is that the people that have come and said, I read your book and I lost my mom to cancer. And that's what we were ready for. We were ready for death. We were ready for the grave because we'd both given up hope. We'd been 10 years into this story and we were following all the rules, but your energy was gone.
Yeah.
The cancer had won. Even if it hadn't taken over all of you, the spirit had died.
Yes.
And I think if nothing, this past summer I gave Mom permission to die. She's like, what? I'm like, no, you're back. The life is real, and my kids will forever remember that this is the Grandma Rose that I knew. I get this question a lot too, and that is, how is your cancer doing now?
Well, I will always have it. It's probably, it's possible to go into remission, but I am, one day at a time, working to keep those numbers down, and
Right. In the past month, we've had to restart chemo, and what did we decide we were going to do when we knew that the chemo was needed? We went 2 years with hardly needing chemo, and just a couple pockets in there is really what we had, and you responded amazingly. But these numbers have shown up again, and we kind of knew this was coming. But on Sundays, what do you and I do?
The best thing you can do with, to get a good start in is to fast, fasting, and it gives you, it gives you a clarity in your mind, and I've done over 70 hours of fasting. Well, actually, a year ago I did 40 days.
Yeah, right. Like just out of the
that's
Bible.
amazing. You don't need that food. You really don't, and you don't get hungry. You get over that first few hours, and you don't have the hunger pains. You don't get hungry.
It is.
It's not like people say, "Oh, I forgot to eat." You do, because you don't have the push to, oh my gosh, I need food, or you've got the belly growling.
Right, and at 71, you probably have, I don't know if you'd ever said the words fasting and not being hungry ever.
Yeah. Like I'm 74 and I'm still saying, you bet.
And I think that's the part that some people have a tough time believing. You go out on YouTube and you can see some of the naysayers saying, oh, people get sick from that ketogenic diet. And I'm like, the first week can be rough and you do need a friend to get through some of this. But to think that my mother would be saying the most powerful thing you can do for your cancer is to fast once a week. And so we start our fast on Sunday afternoons. We do it together. And I post my stuff on Facebook, not just to inspire Grandma, but then to inspire several other patients that are out there trying to learn how to decrease their inflammation. And it works. It really does to just be that voice out there. And you've gotten really good about checking numbers.
Oh yes, that's another thing, you know. It's a reward when you get up in the morning and you do that glucose and you do those ketone numbers. And it's a reward. Say, it was worth, you know, it was all worth it.
Right, and then it is what we try to reach for, you know, using a lot of the research that we looked at. There is no double-blinded, placebo-controlled trial for your type of cancer, but there is information out there that says put stress on those cancer cells, which is to get that sugar lower and then to fuel the rest of her brain, her body, her immune system with good ketone numbers. And we worked really hard to not just teach her that, but to make sure that we post enough on Facebook to not be your doctor, but be your inspiration. And I just want to say thank you for everybody that's written a review on this book. I never imagined the notes I was writing to my mom would turn into helping so many people. So thank you. And I look forward to seeing where this takes us next.
Okay.
So until next time, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate all your support. Signing out.